Chloe couldn't believe what she was seeing. Alice was in the arms of a man, their closeness unmistakable. He kissed her, and Alice responded before suddenly pulling back, realizing they weren't alone. "Chloe," Alice stammered, her face flushed. Duke Damien stood silently beside Chloe, watching without surprise. "Dear, dear," he murmured. "What on earth are you doing?" Chloe gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief. Alice looked panicked. "Go! They'll kill you if they catch you," she hissed, pushing the man away. "I'd happily die right here," the man replied with a smirk, unfazed by Chloe's and the Duke's presence. "Please, Eddie," Alice pleaded, her voice trembling. "Eddie?" Chloe blinked. The name triggered a memory. Alice had once mentioned him casually. "I met a bohemian at the village festival," Alice had said, lying on Chloe's bed with a dreamy smile. "His name was Eddie. I hope I get to see him again." "So, they've been seeing each other this whole time?" Chloe's heart sank. She turned away from the Duke, visibly shaken. He noticed. Damien stepped closer, steadying her gently. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Your Grace," Chloe said, bowing her head slightly. Eddie darted off into the garden, disappearing through the shadows. "Chloe, I didn't expect him to show up like that. I was just—" Alice began to explain, clearly flustered. "Stop talking, Alice," Chloe said sharply, her expression cold. She turned to Damien. "Your Grace, my sincere apologies. Would you excuse me? I'd like to speak with my sister privately." He gave a small nod. "As you wish." Chloe nodded in return. "Thank you." Alice stood frozen, already anticipating what was coming. "Alice," Chloe said, raising her voice, "go back to the carriage. Now." Startled, Alice obeyed, hurrying away in silence. Chloe remained behind, head lowered. For a few moments, neither she nor the Duke spoke. Then Damien broke the silence. "It looks like Lord Verdier's second daughter will be making headlines again," he said dryly. "She certainly has a talent for attracting scandal." Chloe's hands trembled as she gripped her cane. "I beg you, please," she said quietly. "Please don't speak of this to anyone." He looked at her with narrowed eyes. "And why shouldn't I?" "You know well that no one would question you if you chose to punish us for this," she said, still not meeting his gaze. "An unauthorized visitor in your private estate is no small matter." He said nothing. "If I don't convince him, my family could be ruined," Chloe thought anxiously. She slowly released her cane and knelt before him, her head bowed. "This is my fault. I failed to keep an eye on my sister. Please, if someone must be punished, let it be me." Damien's expression darkened slightly. "And if I refuse?" he asked, stepping closer. "What then?" Chloe's mind raced. "Think, Chloe. You have to protect Father and Alice." Gathering herself, she raised her head. "House Thissy is known for its honor," she said steadily. "You are its heir, a decorated commander, honored by the royal family. You once stood before your soldiers and vowed to bring glory to those who fought with you." Damien listened in silence. "My father may not have gone to war, but he opened his gates to your army when they had nowhere else to go. He did what he could." He gave a short laugh. "So now you're calling in that debt?" "I only ask for your generosity," Chloe replied softly. "Just this once." Damien leaned in. "And have I not already repaid it? I invited your family to a gathering of the highest nobles in the kingdom." He straightened. "Your sister chose to throw that away. Blame her, not me." "Your Grace," Chloe said, her voice cracking. She dropped fully to her knees and gripped his leg, lowering her forehead to the ground. "Please, just this once. If you could forgive us, I'll never forget your kindness. I'll do anything you ask." Damien's expression turned unreadable. "What do you think you're doing?" he asked coldly. Chloe didn't respond. She stayed there, still. He sighed and knelt beside her, lifting her face with a hand under her chin. "Why are you doing this?" he asked quietly. "What happened to the noble woman who once looked me in the eye without flinching?" Chloe's eyes trembled as his hand remained gently against her face. His voice softened, but the weight of her desperation lingered heavily between them. Fireworks lit up the night sky above Duke Thiss's manor as the celebration inside carried on. But outside, in the quiet of the garden, Chloe remained kneeling before Duke Damien. "The issue of your sister's marriage," he said softly, still holding her face, "is clearly what drove you to beg me like this." He looked at her steadily. "Your family's only hope of restoring its fortune lies in either you or your sister marrying into wealth. A marriage of convenience, no doubt. But what about you, Lady Chloe? Does your own life not matter?" Chloe responded quietly, "No, It doesn't. Not compared to the happiness of those I love. That is what matters most to me. Damien studied her for a long moment. And you're willing to do anything to secure that? If it's within my ability, she answered calmly. He gave her a narrow look. Interesting. Then I'll have to think about what you can offer in return. Standing, he stroked her face once more before speaking with a firmer tone. Go back to the Verdier estate at once. Chloe nodded. I'd like that. But then she hesitated. Your Grace, Prince Johannes had requested to meet Alice later. She was cut off. From this moment on, Damien interrupted, his tone turning sharp, if you or your sister behave in a way that attracts attention from Prince Johannes, or any man in the Empire, I will deal with you and your family myself. His voice was calm, but the threat felt real. These are the limits of my generosity, he added, brushing his fingers lightly against her lips. And one more thing. I suggest you avoid bringing men into this garden. It's often used by lovers for indiscreet purposes. He leaned closer, making Chloe's heart race. Unless, of course, you're hoping rumors spread about the two of us, he said, then turned and left. Chloe remained seated on the ground, the sounds of fireworks in the distance doing nothing to ease her shaken nerves. What a despicable man, she muttered, clenching the fabric of her dress. 3 months later, Chloe sat at her writing desk, drafting a letter. To His Grace, Duke Damien Ernst von... My Lord Duke, I hope this letter finds you well. It has been 3 months since my return from Swain, where the sweet scent of roses lingered in the air. There is now talk of a marriage between my sister Alice and the gentleman she met at your estate. Our family is overjoyed, for he is a man of admirable character. I am well aware that this would not have been possible without your generosity. She dipped her pen again and paused. Come to the point where? She murmured, rereading the sentence. No, that feels too forward. As she stared at the page in thought, Jills entered, carrying a tray. Lady Chloe, I've brought some refreshments. Thank you, Jill, she said, setting her pen down. How's Alice? She went out earlier this morning, but hasn't left her room since. She's refusing food, says she's feeling unwell. I see, Chloe frowned slightly. She hasn't gone to meet that bohemian again, has she? I don't think so. Lady Alice seems to have matured lately. You're right, Chloe said, especially with her engagement to Count Cormier approaching. He's a good man, far better than that wanderer. My lady, Jills hesitated. When Lady Alice marries, you may find yourself feeling lonely. Are you worried about me, Jills? She asked with a small smile. I know it's not my place. How could I be lonely when I still have you? She replied lightly. Jills turned bright red and looked away, prompting a giggle from Chloe. Ah, since you're here, take a look at this letter, she said, handing him the paper. I'm writing to thank Duke Thys for inviting us to the ball, but it still feels like something's missing. She frowned. He's so ill-tempered he'll find fault no matter what I write. If that's the case, Jill said, glancing over the letter, he'll probably be even more annoyed if it arrives late. Before they could discuss it further, the door burst open. Chloe, my dear, Viscount Verdier called, stepping into the room. Get ready. Quickly now. Father? Chloe looked up startled. Duke Thys is coming here. To hunt. What? Chloe said, eyes wide. Our forests are full of game. It's no surprise he'd choose to come. I just received word he'll be arriving sooner than expected. Chloe sat back in her chair, unable to hide her dread. Why would he come all the way out here? Just to hunt. Soon, the Duke arrived at the Verdier estate. Your Grace, it's an honor to have you here. What? Viscount Verdier said warmly. I hope the summer heat hasn't wearied you too much. Duke Damien said nothing at first. He observed the castle with his usual cool demeanor. You have fewer servants than before, he said plainly. We're still recovering from the last round of renovations. Chloe stepped forward, responding in her father's place. We only just received word of your visit. Even so, we'll do our best to ensure your stay is comfortable. Damien gave her a slow smile. I shall hold you to that, he said. A noble who cannot be a proper host doesn't deserve her title. As he passed by her, his gaze lingered, but whether in amusement or warning, she couldn't tell. At Castle Verdier, the family dined with their guest, Duke Damien. I do hope you'll forgive us, Your Grace, Viscount Verdier said politely. It seems my youngest daughter, Alice, is feeling a little unwell. I hope it's nothing serious, Duke Damien replied, glancing up from his plate. Thank you for your concern, the Viscount responded warmly. And allow me to thank you for this splendid meal, the Duke added. My apologies. It is we who should be entertaining you, the Viscount said graciously. It's my pleasure. Though, what a pity, Damien continued, pausing his meal to glance at Chloe, who had barely touched her food. It seems this course isn't to Lady Chloe's taste. I'm afraid the recent heat has dulled my appetite, Chloe replied calmly, not meeting his gaze. Oh, then perhaps a bit more resilience to the outdoors would benefit you, he said with faint amusement. The Viscount chuckled. She's likely just nervous in your Grace's presence. But truly, her love for the forest is so deep that it's not unusual for her to fall asleep under the trees. Chloe shifted slightly in her seat at the comment. Is that so? Then she must be quite familiar with the surrounding grounds, Damien replied. She is, the Viscount confirmed. It's fair to call the forest leading to the mountain her personal garden. I recall a time she fell quite ill after returning from an outing, but even then, she never stopped going. The Duke's expression remained unreadable. You don't say. Now that I think about it, that must have been around the time your Grace and your soldiers were staying with us, the Viscount added as Jills quietly poured water beside Chloe. Are you all right, my lady? Jills asked gently, leaning in. Thank you, Jill, she murmured, keeping her composure despite her tension. Damien stirred his glass in silence, watching the exchange. If she's so fond of the forest, he said after a moment, I'd like her to guide me during tomorrow's hunt. Oh, I'm afraid Chloe may be a hindrance due to her condition, her father interjected. If you'll allow it, I'll find someone else who... I'd rather hear what she thinks, Damien said smoothly, his gaze resting on Chloe. He already knows, Chloe thought, clutching her dress under the table. There was only one answer she could give. If you'll permit my attendant to lead my horse, I would be happy to accompany you, she replied. No, the Duke cut in. You'll be riding with me. As you might imagine, I'm not accustomed to following behind others. By morning, Chloe stood dressed and ready outside the estate, waiting nervously. Soon, Duke Damien arrived on horseback. There you are, he said, extending a hand. Come join me. Is this safe? She wondered. I've ridden leisurely before, but never during a hunt. Jill stood beside her, eyes filled with concern. Quickly now, the Duke urged. Would you hold my cane, Jills? She asked. Will you be all right, my lady? He asked quietly. Of course, Chloe said, her voice steady. She accepted the Duke's hand and mounted behind him. As they rode deeper into the forest, Damien spoke again. You and that attendant of yours seem quite close, he noted. Jills has been with our family since he was a child. When the other servants left due to unpaid wages, he stayed. He's more than an attendant to us. In that moment, Damien suddenly shifted, pressing his heel into the saddle. The horse surged forward, startling Chloe. Your Grace, she gasped, clinging tightly. Directions, Lady Chloe, he said calmly, ignoring her fear. Left or right? She hesitated. I need an answer. Left? We must go left. The hunt intensified as their group and hounds closed in. Soon one of Damien's dogs caught a large deer, ending the chase. Whoa, that's a fine catch, Damien said, his horse slowing. You really do know the forest well. Did he do all this to test me? Or torment me? Chloe thought, he's cruel beyond reason. Suddenly, she felt his hand gently on her head. Shh, he whispered. Breathe, Lady Chloe. His touch lingered for a moment. There? It's all over now, he said, his voice low. Chloe quivered, unsure if she was relieved or more afraid than ever. Later that evening at Castle Verdier, the family gathered for dinner with their guest, Duke Damien. I'll be sending for the physician at first light, Chloe said, setting down her glass. The physician? Viscount Verdier asked, surprised. Is something wrong? His Grace was injured during the hunt. He was attacked by a wild animal. His wound should be examined properly. Alice said nothing, quietly focused on her meal. Goodness, were you badly hurt, Your Grace? The Viscount asked with concern. I was nicked while chasing on foot, Damien replied casually. Riding doesn't offer enough excitement. If it's a minor wound, Chloe could stitch it, Alice commented, stabbing her steak with her fork. Alice! Chloe exclaimed, clearly uncomfortable. We don't have any anesthetic, unfortunately, so you'll have to bear the pain, Alice added with a shrug. Your Grace, it would be best to call a physician, Chloe insisted, tense. Many villagers are falling ill from food poisoning with only one doctor to care for them. You've always said we shouldn't monopolize his time, Alice said, matter of fact. I wouldn't want to take resources away from your people, Damien said, dabbing his mouth with a handkerchief. But would you mind taking a look after dinner, Lady Chloe? I still think it would be wiser to send for someone qualified, Chloe replied. She's right, her father began. Allow me to. I remember, during my army's stay here years ago, Damien interrupted, Lady Chloe tending to the wounded. The sight left a lasting impression. I'm confident she'll do well. You remember that? The Viscount beamed. I haven't forgotten a moment of it. Damien said, glancing sideways at Chloe. Not a single detail. Later, Chloe entered Damien's room, carrying her medical supplies. You look like a prisoner heading to the gallows, Damien said dryly, glancing at her from his bed, book in hand. It's only a simple request. Please show me the wound, Chloe said quietly. Why not find it yourself? He replied. At least roll up your sleeve, she said, sitting beside him. I'm sure you're capable of that much, he muttered, closing his book. With respect, Your Grace, she said, lowering her eyes, it isn't proper for an unmarried woman to touch a man. How old-fashioned, Damien murmured with a smirk. Still, I suppose you're right. He began undoing his shirt, eventually tossing it aside to reveal the injury. Chloe's eyes widened slightly as she blushed. Lady Chloe, it might be best not to stare, he said, amused. I never asked him to undress, she thought. She reached for her tools. This may sting. Then make it hurt, he said calmly. Your private tutor was a physician? Damien asked. Yes. Useful, I imagine. I learned a bit, she said as she cleaned the wound, but what's helping now is something else entirely. Oh? Embroidery, she answered, threading the needle. He chuckled. The first time I've seen embroidery prove useful. She smiled faintly. Then, his tone shifted. Tell me, does your sister still sneak out at night? Chloe tensed. You should stay still. Answer me. She's changed since then. Thanks to your Grace's intervention, there is talk of her marriage to Count Cormier. I'm grateful. He leaned in slightly. Had I known silence would earn me 3 months without a word from you, I'd have reconsidered doing you that favor. You're much too close, Chloe whispered, blushing. Answer me, he pressed. I wrote you many letters, she admitted. I never received them. I couldn't bring myself to send them. He stared. Your attempt to lie is disappointing. Your Grace, please, you're too close. Tell me the truth, Chloe. Her voice trembled. It's because you despise me. That's your answer? He asked, eyes narrowed. I know how repulsive I must seem to you. That's why I hesitated. I didn't know how to repay your kindness. I'm sorry. She finished the final stitch. I've done what I came to do. I'll take my leave. She rose, her hands slightly shaking as she picked up the tray. But as she turned, she stepped on his discarded shirt and slipped. The tray fell with a clatter. In an instant, Damien caught her, pulling her into his arms to keep her from falling. They landed on the bed, Chloe beneath him. Your Grace. Your arm, she exclaimed, seeing the reopened wound. You can fix it again, can't you? He said, not moving. She looked up, startled. Your Grace, what is it you want from me? She asked, voice barely above a whisper, her face flushed. He reached up, stroking her hair gently. I think you already know, he said quietly, his breath warm against her skin. I'm only here to treat your wound, per my father's request, Chloe said, turning away from Duke Damien's gaze. Oh, Lady Chloe, is that truly what you believe he wanted? Damien asked, a faint edge in his tone. This feels familiar, Chloe thought, watching him. This is the same conversation we had 3 years ago. I understand your mistrust, she said. Life on the battlefield would make anyone wary. But believing every woman in the kingdom is desperate to marry you, that's a bit of an egotistical assumption, isn't it? Is it? Damien replied, tilting his head slightly. They stared at each other in silence, until Damien suddenly laughed. Why is he laughing? Chloe blinked, startled. Is he unhinged? Fine, he said, amused. Shall we test your theory? He pulled her upright. You may go. You've done what you came for. Back in her room, Chloe let out a long sigh, her heartbeat finally settling. She limped to her dressing table. Why did I waste time worrying about how to thank such an insufferable man? She thought, picking up a pair of hand-stitched gloves. I was foolish to think he'd appreciate them. She set the gloves aside. I must not let my emotions get the better of me. Moving to the window, she swung it open. The evening breeze swept in. Once Alice is married and our family is secure, everything will be all right. The next day, the family gathered for tea with Duke Damien. Chloe sat quietly, caught off guard by what she'd just heard. Are you sure it was your arm that was injured and not your head? Alice whispered, incredulous. Your Grace, Viscount Verdier said, clearly uneasy. I'm not sure I heard you correctly. I said, Duke Damien repeated calmly, I wish to propose marriage. To your daughter, Lady Alice Verdier. The room fell still. Haha, well, you see, the Viscount began, laughing nervously. There are already talks of engagement between Alice and Count Cormier. Is that so? Damien asked, raising a brow. Yes, that's right, the Viscount confirmed, still chuckling. The fact remains, Damien said, setting down his cup, I still desire her hand in marriage. He leaned forward slightly. You seem to think me inadequate, Lord Verdier. Is that why you keep sidestepping the matter? A tense silence followed. Of course not, the Viscount said quickly. But whatever I may think, I must also respect my daughter's wishes. As you should, Damien replied coolly. He stood and began slipping on his gloves. I'll give you 3 days to consider. I'll be staying at my villa nearby in the meantime. His gaze flickered to Chloe. I trust you'll give this matter serious thought, he said before departing. I never asked to be a duchess! Alice cried, slamming her door shut. She collapsed onto her bed in tears. I know what an opportunity this is, Chloe said gently, sitting beside her. But Alice, what is he thinking? Why propose so suddenly? Her mind drifted to the conversation from the night before. Was this connected to that strange bet? If this isn't what you want, I'll speak to Father, Chloe said firmly. You don't have to go through with it. Alice turned to her, hugging her tightly. Chloe, if something goes wrong and I can't marry, what happens to us? She sobbed. The Duke's proposal has likely ended everything with Count Cormier, and if I refuse Damien, he might. Don't cry, Chloe whispered, embracing her. Things will be fine. In time, new offers will come. You just need to endure a little longer. I'm in love with Eddie, Alice confessed. Chloe stiffened. Alice, that man. I'm carrying his child, Chloe, Alice said through tears. What should I do?